Hello Wolfpack, I've got a few things I want to talk about today on Bitcoin, a few new things that have come up, but first and foremost, let's look into the daily chart, then we can bring up those new things that I'm going to talk about. And the daily chart, and we've just had the weekly candle close by the way, but the daily candle close is what we want to look at first and foremost, and this has come at a pretty interesting time for Bitcoin. Now it has been the weekend, and so volume can't really be taken too seriously. We have seen descending volume in this downwards trend, which is a bullish sign typically, but as I said, has been the weekend for 2 of those 3 days. We can't take it too seriously. We'll have to see what it comes in the next few days here. So volume's a bit of a no-show right now. We can't really bring that up too much. We've had a bearish MACD cross, obviously, as you guys would know, and we saw a bearish divergence on RSI, but ultimately we're not really seeing anything too compelling coming through from any of the oscillators here or the MACD, so nothing really too interesting to bring up there. But on the daily candle, what we can see is that, well, we've had a pretty interesting time, and we've actually dropped below this major support block here now. This green rectangle has now flipped for resistance, so we're going to make it red now. Okay, that is a resistance zone now, no longer a support zone. We've dropped below that on the daily candle, closed convincingly below it with a bearish engulfing candle after a doji candle, which some people would have claimed to be a reversal. It wasn't a reversal as expected. This is just what we spoke about yesterday. And in fact, we went to the exact price target we spoke about yesterday. Okay, so let's go ahead and do what we did yesterday. We had a symmetrical triangle yesterday. We said we were going to break it to the downside, and we said we're going to reach a target of around 38k, and we reached the target of 38k. In fact, tweaking down just around to 37.9k, so just around the target we were expecting there. Perfect kind of thing there. Now, obviously, after you see something like that, you're going to see a swing to the upside, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all if Bitcoin comes back up and tests 39.5k for resistance before rejecting downwards further and doing something like that, right? That would be a pretty clean, pretty simple breakdown in price. Happens all the time. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens for Bitcoin. So yeah, I don't think it's bullish right now. And what we can actually see as well is that right now on Bitcoin, what we've done is we haven't just dropped below this major support block, we've also dropped below the Ichimoku cloud on the daily candle, which we managed to fight back a little bit during this little bull trap. And so now that we've dropped below it, it means that it's acting as resistance when it was previously acting support way back up here in December. This is still very much resistance, and in fact, we rejected from it with a double top formation, which means it's going to be very strong resistance, and so I wouldn't expect at all any break above 43k at this point on Bitcoin. Not at all. I think a break above 43k would be extremely hard to achieve on Bitcoin at this point. What we can do as well, we can look at the Gaussian channel. We can see that, well, we rejected from the center line of the Gaussian channel on that double top as well, and not really much to say about the Bollinger Bands. Let's look at volume profile, and we can see that the next major block of support is right below us here. So we have a massive zone of support coming through from around 31k all the way to 38k, which is the major chop zone that we've chopped within in January to February 2021, and also from May to July 2021 as well, and now we're chopping it in again. So this is a major support block, and this is basically the last area of support on Bitcoin until we reach the 200-week SMA. And so what am I expecting to happen from here? Well, that question is very hard to answer. However, what I would say is that, as you guys would know, and a lot of people would know, my prediction for Bitcoin is we're going to reach the 200-week SMA, and we'll bring up the weekly chart right now because it's coming to the part of the video where we need to talk about what's going on in the weekly chart. And my prediction with Bitcoin, as I just said, is the 200-week SMA, and that is this green line here on Bitcoin. Let's remove these things right now. This green line is my prediction on Bitcoin. We'll bring up the logarithmic chart so you can see a bit more clearly here. And essentially what I'm showing you right now is something that's actually quite compelling, and a lot of people might have been talking about this. I've been talking about this since the 60k region, and I've been advocating for this scenario since 60k. Okay, so what we have seen on Bitcoin is losing the 50-week SMA. Okay, so we lost it here. So, for example, 2014, we lost it. We end up with 200. We lost the 50-week. We ended up with 200. We lost the 50-week. We ended up with 200. We've lost the 50-week, and we're going to end up with 200. So you can see that 1, 2, 3, and this is the 4th time. So 3 times so far. Every time out of those 3 times, every time we lose the 50-week SMA, we end up at the 200-week SMA, which, every time we lose the red line, we end up at the green line. And so there's no reason for us to believe at this point that that will not be happening again on Bitcoin. There's simply no reason. And now what we can actually do as well, and the reason why today's progress is quite interesting, and we'll look at the actual weekly candle close itself in a second, but the reason why today's progress is interesting is because these are the all-time highs for each cycle, okay? So 2013 all-time high was 1,100. The 2017 all-time high was just below 20k. And the all-time high for this cycle is 69k. Okay, you can see that every time we reach an all-time high, we don't historically go down and retest that all-time high in a bear market. Okay, it's only been, we haven't done it much, that given, it's only been 1 or 2 times here. But a lot of people would say this is quite compelling, okay? And we haven't retested all-time highs in Bitcoin before from previous cycles. And so now what's interesting about the weekly chart is the 200-week SMA has moved above the previous all-time high. And so it is not required for us to retest the previous all-time high for support if we drop down. In fact, if 20-week is moving upwards at a rapid pace, say we retested here, we could retest it there. We don't have to retest this region here. So, look, quite interesting to say the least. We don't have to be retesting a previous all-time high. There is a solid chance now that we do not drop below 20k on Bitcoin. There is a solid chance that 20k and below 20k will never be visited again on Bitcoin. Obviously, that relies on the financial markets, traditional financial markets, whether we enter a recession. There's many factors behind that. But with TA alone, we can assume that's going to be the case. Obviously, we can't just use TA alone, though. But at this point, it's the best guess we can have. Now, as for the weekly chart, there's not really a super massive amount to bring up, except for the fact that, well, we saw pretty clear bearish stuff here on the weekly. I mean, we had a long wick to the upside on this weekly candle here. A massive top signal for the dead cat bounce, as we would have said 2 weeks ago, and obviously we led to a strong downside candle there. That was very, very bearish, and now we're kind of just lurking in the 39k region after that. And I would expect further downside action for sure. I think that within the next couple of weeks here, we will be back at 33k, testing the lows once again. Maybe in the next few weeks, who knows? Very hard to say with this kind of thing, but we do have to consider as well. That 1 second, let me bring this back up and let me bring up my original chart that I had here. Yeah, okay, cool. We do have to consider as well that interest rates are being risen on March 15th, and so there could be a little bit of consolidation until that point. Obviously, the traditional markets are tanking at this point as the interest rate rise is being priced in currently, right? That's why they're tanking, by the way, because interest rates rising is not good for traditional markets, and so people are trying to get out while they can, essentially. But that's going to come to a tipping point on March 15th, and so I wouldn't expect, I wouldn't be buying into any rally at all until March 15th at least, just to see what's going on there. And obviously you got the Russia and Ukraine, that could drag on for months though, so I'm not too concerned about that at this point, but it is something to keep an eye on. So as for Bitcoin right now, well, we had a pretty bearish weekly candle close. We closed below major support. We closed below major support on the daily as well, and we closed below Ikomoku Cloud. And now we're entering this major support block coming from the VVPR in this 30k region. But ultimately, it doesn't look good for Bitcoin. I don't think we're going to be able to break above 43k. And I honestly think that we're just going to reject at 40k or 39.5k and just head further downwards on Bitcoin. So yeah, it doesn't look good. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. And I'll catch you in the next video.